Honorable Mayor, distinguished council members, heads of our departments, thank you for having me. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, today we come before your presence, first of all, to thank you for this day, for this council that acknowledges your authority and your rule over this place. Father, I pray that you depart, Lord, and give the wisdom you gave to Solomon, because you said all authority on earth is placed by the Father in heaven. In the book of Proverbs, you said that when the righteous rule, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people groan. We pray today, Lord, that your spirit of truth and righteousness may flow through this place, give wisdom and knowledge to all those present. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. We have Commander Reyna lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I get a roll call. Here. And we have a quorum. Let's move into item 4, consideration of the approval of the agenda. Councilmember Jones?
So moved.
Councilmember Lambert?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Let's move on to item 5, presentation. Presentations are certificates of recognition for Westside Union Elementary School participation and achievements at the National Academic Pentathlon. Do I have anybody here from Westside? Nobody here from Westside? All right. Should we give them? Yeah, okay, that works for me. All right. So this first one is for certificate of recognition to Tammy Schultz, Westside Union Elementary School, in recognition of coaching and achievement at the National Academic Pentathlon. And this is dated July 5th today. The Westside Union Elementary School finished second place overall at the National Academic Pentathlon, 7th grade champions division. So we'll make sure we get these, and I'll read these kids' names that represented our city so well. Westside Union Elementary School also finished first place in the Super Quiz winners. And this is for the 7th grade champions division. Of course, they're on summer vacation. Why would they come to this? It's a city hall. I don't blame them. All right, so this first one is for Jorge Oliveras, Westside Union Elementary School, in recognition of his participation and achievements of bronze in social science, silver in fine arts, silver in literature, and silver overall in the varsity division at the National Academic Pentathlon. Congratulations. This is presented to Delia Perez, the Westside Union Elementary School, in recognition of her participation and achievement of bronze in science in the varsity division at the National Academic Pentathlon. This is for Ward Sabe, Westside Union Elementary School, in recognition, participation, and achievement of bronze in science, silver in mathematics, gold in fine arts, gold in social science, and gold overall in the scholastic division at the National Academic Pentathlon. This is for Reese Betchart, Westside Union Elementary School, recognition of his participation and achievements of gold in literature and bronze in social science and scholastics division. Bunch of super smart kids. This is for Sienna Halloran, in recognition of participation and achievement of bronze in fine arts in the honors division. This is to Rachel Betchart, Westside Union Elementary School, in recognition, participation, in the achievement of bronze in social science in the honors division. And last but not least, this is for Max Menifee, in recognition of your participation and achievement in gold in social science, silver in science, and bronze in fine arts in the honors division at the National Academic Pentathlon. So congratulations to all of you. All right, we'll move on to item 6, the public forum. Members of the public may address the city council members on any item of public interest that is within the jurisdiction of the city council. This includes agenda and non-agenda items. No action will be taken on non-agenda items. Speakers are limited to a 5-minute presentation. Detailed guidelines are posted on the city council chamber information table in the back. This time I'd like the public to come forward and speak, and just remind those to silence or turn off your cell phones at this time.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This was the fireworks the other night, Saturday night, was really a beautiful display. And, the fireworks Saturday night was a beautiful display, and it was just really nice seeing people come together for fireworks that are safe. Unfortunately, we've got so many people in neighborhoods that are bringing in illegal fireworks, and then the really a devastating display of what can happen when fireworks, why these fireworks aren't condoned, was when somebody's house burns and other people are displaced. I just hope that these people that are found and really are nailed to the wall for it, justice-wise, because this is the reason that fireworks are so dangerous and why we don't have them for sale here. I'm hoping that something is more can be done to keep these out of the city. Fireworks went off in my neighborhood all night last night up until they started before 7, and I don't think they finally quit until sometime after 10:30 or 11. They're constantly over somebody's house. So I guess my concern is why we're not able to catch more of these people. It just seems like, the residue in the street, if they went up to somebody's house, would probably find it all over their lawn. I want to applaud the mayor and others that were involved in getting our city streets repaired. This has been long overdue, and I'm really glad we've got people of action and not just words getting it done. I'm curious, though, Pacheco and Mercy Springs are state highways, so I don't know if we can get involved with, if you get involved with getting those repairs done, or is it basically the state's timing and budget? One of the things that I'd like to see, if we don't have, is an ordinance that prevents people from smoking within 500 feet of any parade route or an outdoor public event. For instance, if they're in a grandstand or whatever it might be. I'm allergic to smoke, and there's a lot of people that are. 100 feet away isn't enough when you've got a wind. All of a sudden, I'm the one that's got to move from place to place to place, and I know I'm not the only one who's had to do that. But I really would like to see an ordinance established for this, all smoking materials. We want to go in, we want to attend events, have a nice time, but being shoved around or being forced to move because of people smoking, I think that something needs to be done there. I'm Ann McCauley, and I'm a local resident. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, staff, fellow residents. A couple things I'd like to talk about tonight. First thing, some positive. You always got to give credit where credit is due. I want to give credit to the folks at the Los Banos Hospital. These folks are true professionals. They have very limited resources, but even with what limited resources they have and personnel that they have and capacities that they are quick and true professionals. They assess things, and whenever it's beyond their ability to treat individuals, they rapidly coordinate with airlift and get them to the place where they can get those services. So again, hospital staff, thank you very much to them. Truly professionals. Other areas, fire department, police department, a daunting task, especially here the last few days or last weeks with the fireworks, illegal fireworks, and the damage and harm it causes to people directly and indirectly. Those people whose property damaged or destroyed, people are displaced, and the grief and stress that it causes to surrounding neighbors. So again, I thank the police department and fire department for their work in that area. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the reason for the date yesterday, July 4th. Now, I guess not just July 4th, it is Independence Day. What does that mean? That means that we, as a separate people, or I should not say we, the people back in, the colonists back in the late 1700s, decided to throw off a oppressive government, namely King George. These folks, they committed themselves to a lifelong struggle because they were not being represented. The taxes were being levied without their consent or without their information or being informed. There was no oversight. There was no accountability. If you dared to speak out or address the government, you were persecuted. And indeed, these folks who decided to take up arms against the crown were labeled as traitors, and they could be hung on sight. So it's very important the sacrifices that these our forefathers did, so that we can enjoy the freedoms that we currently enjoy. And it's important that we continue to provide that oversight and that accountability and ask those questions. And again, in order to get to a better understanding, because it's always with the exchange of ideas and thoughts that we come up to the best solution. We can't make decisions in a what I call an echo chamber. So again, just that. Let's see. A couple items from the budget that I think that should have been addressed or were addressed, but I think that required or should have required a little bit more funding. One is the roads. We saw that the floods really gave a reality check as to how bad our roads were. Some of our roads are in such dire disrepair that it's going to require complete removal of the road and a new road being built, basically. So some of those things, when you get into those kinds of deep projects, there's always the cost overruns. So maybe a little bit more money should have been directed to that. And I know the budget can be amended, so that's something hopefully the council looks into, getting reports or feedback from the various staff members to ensure that if we're going to do this, that we do it right. Another item was the animal shelter. Thank you for ensuring that project continues, but I think that's another area that we could probably use a little bit more funding, because it's something that is way beyond past action. And we have a lot of animals that, especially during this time, where they get loose, they get strayed. There's only so much capacity, and I think that we need to increase that capacity as soon as possible. The other item is, again, is expenditures. I realize the intent is well to hire more staff, but we have a lot of indicators that point to a downward cycle in our economy. We have a glut of drivers because of the lower demand of dry goods. So that means there's a lot of drivers who are basically turning in their trucks. They're calling
30 seconds.
very well. Again, those were my comments. Again, I want to say thank you for the action you took on those budgets, and I appreciate the responses. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm Mike Hughes. I'm the commander of the VFW here in Los Banos. And first off, I'd like to thank our city manager, Josh Pinero, for taking of his time on Saturday and swearing in all of our officers for the next year. Josh, I've heard nothing but positive comments, because you stopped and talked to everybody that was there and were telling them what was going on, and I want to thank you very much for that. And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank you for, I noticed it on social media that you guys had a luncheon for some of the city employees. And I think it's time that happens again. It used to happen all the time, but I'm happy that you're taking that into your realm. And the veterans of Los Banos would like to offer you. We would be honored to help you cook those things when you're having those things. So if you just let us know, we're there. We're not looking for anything in return. We just want to give back to the city. You guys have always been good to us, and so we want to give back in a way that we can. And we're pretty good at cooking. But that's it. I also want to thank you for the downtown trees are looking great. They've been trimmed finally after years, and I know you're getting into the neighborhoods, the streets. Everything looks like it's going in a positive direction. So, everybody comes to complain. I just wanted to come and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
My name is Graciano Rubio. I'm requesting that we include a report on the success of the Small Business Assistance Program at the next City Council meeting. The city has received approximately $10 million in ARPA funding. Of that $10 million, $1 million, or 10%, was originally allocated to the RAD card program. After the RAD card failed to achieve its goal, which was to replace revenue for businesses who suffered revenue losses during the shutdown, the remaining funds were reallocated to the Small Business Assistance Program. At the December 7, 2022 meeting where the Small Business Assistance Program was approved, two primary questions were raised by the council. The first question was why nonprofits were being included in the program. The second question was about the scoring system that would be used to distinguish between businesses in determining grant awards. In response to why nonprofits were being included, the finance director stated that it was his decision to include them. His justification was that because nonprofits experienced negative economic impacts related to the shutdown, they should be included. This is allowed by ARPA only if the nonprofit falls under sections 501c3 or 501c19 of the Internal Revenue Code. 501c6s and 501c8s are ineligible to receive ARPA funding. It's estimated the city has awarded approximately $70,000 in grants to ineligible nonprofits. One of the nonprofits in question did not have any economic impact from the shutdown. They did not have a decrease in revenue, nor did they have an increase in expenses, which was supposed to be a requirement of the program. Based on the classification of each organization that has received funding through the Small Business Assistance Program, the total amount of ineligible grants awarded is likely higher than $70,000. But only nonprofit tax returns are public, so the full amount of ineligible grants cannot be verified. The response to the scoring system question is that a scoring system is ready to go, and final decisions regarding award amounts would be made jointly between the finance director and the community and economic development director. It was stated that the details of the scoring system used to make final decisions would not be posted for public view. Only the three-tier system used to determine general eligibility and priority would be published. Those published guidelines were not followed. Businesses which fall into one of the three tiers and should have received priority did not. Instead, organizations who do not fall into any tier were given priority and larger grant awards. I asked for clarification from the city about the scoring system, to which I received three separate explanations that included criteria that was applied inconsistently and failed to describe the discrepancy between the published guidelines and the actual grants given. At the December 7th meeting, it was stated that this program would be reviewed in 6 to 7 months to determine its success. 7 months have now elapsed. I'm asking for a report at the next City Council meeting that includes an explanation of the scoring system, the scores that each business received, and the amount of each individual grant award. Because awards were supposed to be granted on a first-come, first-served basis, this report should also include the date of initial application submission, the date a determination was made, and the date the check was written.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm Cami Avalar, and I'm here to talk about the homeless on the rail trail, my favorite subject. I know that the thought is it's not an inconvenience, and it's not a problem for the people on Pitzer Way or the people in Shaughnessy Village, but it is. Friday morning at 6:45, as I was getting ready to work from home, I heard a loud noise. I thought it was a mortar going off, and it actually was an explosion. And one of the homeless encampments was on fire. In fact, the fire was clear above the trees. So I called I called 911 and reported that it wasn't just a warming fire. It was something on fire, along with I was concerned the trees were going to be, catch on fire also. I timed it. It took 10 minutes for a fire truck to arrive. The fire department's not that far from the rail trail. It was 10 minutes, and then they parked over in the parking lot of the shopping center, so they couldn't really get to where the fire was. I don't think it was the best display of our fire department. I certainly hope my house doesn't catch on fire based on that. And who knows, with the people behind us, it's a good possibility. Yolanda down the street had her fence catch on fire, which he's already talked about. It is an ongoing source of problems. In the last 2 weeks, somebody in Shaughnessy Village had their backyard broken into. It's not without consequences that they live behind us. And I know it's not behind you, but it's behind us. I can call the police department at 1 o'clock in the morning when I'm woken up by a fight going on, but by the time they arrive, if they arrive, it's long broken up. How do I explain what homeless encampment it was? They don't have addresses, unless we're going to start giving them addresses. I can't say which one it was. So it's a moot point. It doesn't do me any good. I call whenever something happens, but the outcome is basically the same. By the time somebody shows up, the problem's gone, but the damage is done already. I know you're directing them to go to that spot. I know you're moving them to go to that corridor behind us. It's not right. It's not fair. And if something happens, I feel you're responsible since you are moving them there. I would really like some type of response other than, well, I've walked it and they're not really, bothering you. I don't think that's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, everyone. I'm not going to talk for 5 minutes tonight. I've said my 5-minute pieces a couple of times. I do want to offer my sincere appreciation and say thank you to everyone who is involved in making Los Banos a better place for the people and the animals here. I want to work with you and not against you, and I'm hoping that in some capacity that's something that I can do, whether it be volunteer with the animal shelter or whatever. We would like a commission or committee as soon as that's something you can do, but I realize it might take some time, and that's, as long as it's in the works, that's great. I did take it upon myself to search for companies who build modular structures, particularly animal shelters, and I found a great animal shelter design at an affordable price from a modular company in Atascadero, California, with photos of their 2,160 square foot shelter that was built for Woods Humane Society in Atascadero for under $1 million. I do believe it was actually under $900,000. Fully complete, fully furnished, everything down to the refrigerator, the washer dryer, the medical equipment, surgical tables, everything. I dropped off packets of the quote from that company and the photos of that shelter to all of you sitting on the board, Police Commander Reyna, City Manager Josh Pinero, and Public Works Engineer, I believe, Neuron Thon. I hope you will review the information and contact that company with questions if you have any, or contact me if I can provide further information. My name and phone number is included in the packet. And I understand it's a big job ahead of us here to get this new shelter. I would be more than happy to help in any way that I can. Call other companies, get more quotes, whatever, tell me what you need and I'll be happy to do it. Thank you again for your time and attention to what matters to the residents of Los Banos. I know you're working hard and have a lot of hard work to do, but it's appreciated, and I do hope to hear more on the new animal shelter very soon. So again, thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the comprehensive packet, by the way. Yes. All right, anyone else? All right. You have any write-in comments? No comments. You said that with a smile. All right. So we're going to close the public forum. Let's move into item 7, consideration of approval of the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine, will be voted on in one motion unless removed from the consent agenda by a city council member. Want to read through this?
Items on the consent agenda are as follows. Warrant numbers 239348 through 239560 in the amount of $2,443,515.56. City Council Resolution Number 6658, authorizing the Public Works Director, City Engineer, to execute change order number 8 to the Design Build Construction Contract Agreement for the City of Los Banos Police Station Facility Project to Swinnerton Builders for the construction of the Public Works parking lot and to increase the project contingency to $974,367. City Council Resolution Number 6659, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with First Five of Merced County for a grant to purchase and install shade sail structures over 5 playground locations. City Council Resolution Number 6660, accepting the Fairgrounds Area Waterline Project as complete and authorizing the filing of a notice of completion with the Merced County Recorder. City Council Resolution Number 6661, authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement between the City of Los Banos and Carollo Engineers, Inc. to update the wastewater master plan and to amend the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget by increasing appropriations in the wastewater collections fund line item 502-432-100-231 in the amount of $49,600. City Council Resolution Number 6662, authorizing the city manager to file a regional surface transportation program exchange program fund claim form for fiscal year 2022-2023. And the items are to be approved as submitted.
All right, thank you. We have any items of discussion from the consent agenda? Councilmember Lewis?
Yes, I'd like to pull item B as in boy.
Okay. All right, item B. All right, any other items? No? All right, so let's do B first, and we'll do the rest of it. Go ahead, Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you. So in reading this report, it looks like we're asking for an additional $700,000 to develop a public works parking lot adjacent to the new police building. First question I have is there going to be a separate entry for public works onto their parking lot? from the police department portion of the parking lot? And second question is, I'd kind of like to know where the 700,000 is coming from. I'm sure it must be something in the budget, but because we didn't have budget hearings, I'm not sure exactly where this money is coming from to build the parking lot. So those are the two questions that I have.
Good evening, Councilmember. We have attached a plan or design of the parking lots as part of the package. So we will have a joint main entrance off of Sanhorn Street. So that's the main entrance that's going to the existing or the new PD facility. To the right-hand side, as you are entering that parking lot, there will be a separate gates to go into a public work parking lot. And then on the left side of that, that's going to be the original design of the PD parking lot. The purpose of having two different gate and entrance is that there is a lot of sensitive equipment as well as personnel issues and stuff like that that our police department are dealing on a regular basis, that we do not want to expose that to our public works maintenance. However, we do want to make sure that our equipment are in a secure area. So this is kind of our intention to get the economy of scales and discount to work with the projects to incorporate this parking lot within the big masonry wall. So that way it's provide a lot of site security, lightings and cameras and things like that that would help us secure our equipment a little bit better. For your second question, in terms of the funding is coming from the corporation yard impact fee that's been collected from developments over time, and it's meant for the expansions of the city corporation yards. In this case, would be a parking lot.
Okay, so there's sufficient money in that budget funding right now for FYI 23-24 to cover the 700,000.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right. So let's do B first. Do I have a motion to approve just item B? Or do the whole thing at once? That's even better with me. All right. Do I have a motion, Councilmember Jones?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Begonia.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to item 8, Merced County Association of Governments, MCAG Annual Update, presented by Stacy Guzman, MCAG Executive Director. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have a packet there that I don't want to forget to hand out. I think you've all seen the annual report, but I've got copies for anyone who doesn't have one. And, oh, I get all the power. Thank you. In English and in Spanish, but I'll mention that in a second. So it's good to see you all again. Again, my name is Stacy Guzman. I'm the Executive Director for the Merced County Association of Governments. And I'm here tonight as part of our annual roadshow to highlight the successes of Measure V. We start this process at the publication of each annual report that typically is released in April. And then it usually takes between, May and July to get on every jurisdiction's calendar to talk with you and actually, arguably, maybe even more important, to share these updates with the public. You all get updates and hear about these projects and make decisions about the funding and the projects, but it's just as important that we're keeping our public informed, so I'm happy to be part of that. So what my presentation will cover is the 2023 On the Move. As I said, I have hard copies here in English and in Spanish, and they are also available on our website. Where am I pointing to? Anywhere? Oh, okay. I always feel like I'm pointing in the direction of not where the computer is. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, so as just as a recap or a refresher, Measure V is a half-cent sales tax that is collected here in Merced County. It was passed by voters in 2016, and it was with the assurances that all of the funding that is collected through the measure be spent on transportation needs in Merced County and according to the funding categories that are set forth in the expenditure plan that was approved by voters. And that's essentially what you see in the pie chart. And what that stipulates is that 50% of all of the funding has to go directly to the jurisdictions. That's directly to the councils that have the decision-making authority based on your own local priorities of how to spend your allocation. 44% is spent on what is called regional projects, and that's broken down specifically to 27% to projects on the east side of the San Joaquin River and 17% to projects on the west side of the river. 5% of the total funding goes to transit uses, and I'll talk about those in a second, and then 1% to MCAG for admin costs. So every year, as I mentioned, we do this annual report. The Citizens Oversight Committee reviews all of the measure expenditures. So every dollar the city spends, the MCAG spends, any of the recipients, the Oversight Committee goes through and checks that those expenditures were in accordance with the expenditure plan that the voters approved. Then in turn, those expenditures get audited by an independent auditing firm, and then they get highlighted in this annual report to the public called On the Move. As I mentioned, these come out, we shoot for April 1st because that was when the measure started. Its collection was April 1st of 2017, so we try to have this annual report out to the public by April 1st of every year. And what it looks at is the expenditures, the audited financial statements for the previous fiscal year. So in this instance, for 2023, we're looking at July 1, 2022 to June 30 of 2022. So we're essentially 1 year behind because of that process I mentioned of jurisdictions, everyone getting their reports in, those getting reviewed line by line by the Oversight Committee, those then getting audited, and then getting approved, and then getting published. It takes about a year. So we're always a year behind, but usually, or so far, it's always been good news. So people don't mind good news when it's even a little late. And as I mentioned, the report is available in English and in Spanish, and is also available on the MCAG website. In terms of totals, I think we're really excited about talking about the money. As you can see, for the 21-22 year, the Measure V had generated nearly $27 million in revenue countywide. Half of that, again, going to the jurisdictions based on a formula that takes into account population and your percentage of road miles. And then of that funding that had come in last year for local jurisdictions, the city of Los Banos received almost 1.4. I think it's 1393 204. So those are your local funding allocation based on formula. And then with these local funds, as I mentioned, it's the opportunity, as you all know, but just as a reminder to the public, that these are really no strings attached dollars to the city. This is about you setting your priorities and using these funds to address your local street priorities. There is a requirement to spend some of those funds on specifically bike and pedestrian facilities, not just street and roads, but also bike and infrastructure. But overall, these are funds that the checks come in. I sign one that goes to the city. You all make the decision. The funding is available for the community use.
Hey, Stacy,
Sure.
I don't want to take the wind out of your sails.
Sure.
Do you want to take questions, if council has any questions,
Sure.
do you want to take them during the presentation? Do you want to wait till you're done? What do you want to do?
Give them to me as we go.
Oh, okay, Councilmember Lewis has it.
She's cleared my question already.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'll try to do that for the rest of the presentation. I'll anticipate your questions. Okay, so I do want to mention quickly transit. So also highlighted, this is actually a snapshot of the page that's in the annual report, is a free ride program that the governing board, the MCAG governing board established. It was actually the first decision to spend any of the funding that came through the measure was to establish this program as part of that 5% dedicated to transit that created a free ride program for veterans, seniors, and ADA eligible passengers. This was originally created just for our fixed route system, so our point-to-point services, the traditional bus system. But since over the last couple of years, we've been able to expand that now to all of our services. So that means paratransit, which is for ADA eligible passengers, is now completely free, paid for by Measure V. Our microtransit services that operate here in Los Banos and Gustine and Santa Nela and Dos Palos. If you are a veteran, ADA eligible passenger, or a senior, you ride those services for free, as well as our traditional fixed route system. Also, we've used some of these funds for a match to purchase our very first electric vehicles, the first of which, even though they were ordered 2 years ago, arrived about 2 weeks ago. And we're hoping to expand our fleet. We'll have 5 in total, and then hoping to expand those out to the west side, hopefully in the years to come as we're able to establish some facilities here for charging. Oh, and the big number. Last year alone, through this program, we provided 156,260 free rides to seniors, veterans, and ADA eligible passengers, thanks to the Measure V program. I mentioned the Citizens Oversight Committee. This report is a product of their work. The committee is comprised of a series of non-elected residents in Merced County. About half of them are appointed directly. Each jurisdiction has a representative, and as well as a couple of regional seats that that MCAG appoints. And now I have to tell you, City Manager Pinero, I know we had this discussion, so I'm sorry that I didn't update my slide. So it does show here that the city's position was vacant, but I understand there's movement there, so that's excellent. This is a really important role, and so I'm happy to help onboard our new representative when that action is taken. All right. So let's talk like big money. So when we talk about this annual report, we're looking at 1 year of revenue. But let's talk about what the first 5 years of the program, because that's how long we've got now on record, and according to the annual reports anyway. And I want to share a couple of cumulative totals for you. So since the measure began April 1st, 2017 through the end of last fiscal year, actually now I should say 21-22 since we just ended a fiscal year, Measure V has generated more than $111 million for Merced County transportation needs. This is far beyond what the initial estimates expected. So and that's always good news that we have funding that our region can count on for the next 25 years to invest in our multimodal transportation infrastructure. So that means half of that, $55 million, has gone directly to jurisdictions. Nearly 49 million has been allocated to regional projects. Let's see, and that means 19 million that's been specifically designated for West Side regional projects in that time. So this is the best slide of all. This is going to say, what do those cumulative numbers mean for the city of Los Banos? And that's summed up right here. So in the first 5 fiscal years, the city of Los Banos has received $7.1 million in transportation funding. So that breaks down to nearly 5.7 in your local allocation of, or your allocation of local funding, and 1.4 million in West Side regional project funding, and that's to construct the highway, towards the construction of the Highway 152 Pacheco Boulevard regional path, and to begin with the development of the Pioneer Road project. So that number may be low to some of you who have been helping work on this. That number represents the funding that is available or has been already allocated today. The city has also been successful in securing an additional $9.5 million to those projects that I just mentioned, but those funds are represented starting this year into the next couple of years. So that money's locked in, and it's the cities to those projects. It's just not counted in the 5-year total because they're programmed in either this fiscal year, next fiscal year, through 25-26. But the funding is secured. So I know I kind of whipped through a lot of that, so I'm happy to, again, to take questions as we go, but I do want to point out, I did mention the MCAG website, the location of that is up there on the screen. That's what it looks like. If you want to look for any of the Measure V activity or information, you can probably find more than you would ever want to know by clicking that link. I think one of the most interesting, especially as this program continues, is this map, an interactive map that shows you where the projects are that have been completed, where they're planned for. It's something you can scan the QR code or get on the annual report as well. Also on the website, this is just kind of a screenshot of the types of information that you can find, all of the previous annual reports, all of the audits. If you're interested in just the the city's expenditure reports, you can find those there. Implementation plans, the report that the actual voters approved that we have, that's kind of the Measure V Bible, that we have to live by, that's all there. And I also do want to mention that this is an exciting time. The implementation plan is a 2-year programming document, or we update it every 2 years. And we're in the middle of that now. So we look forward to receiving the city's submissions for additional funding that are coming up, those being due on August 1st, so that we can program either more money to your existing projects that you're working on to deliver, or start to develop some new projects over the next couple of years. So I did run through that pretty quickly, but I also didn't make eye contact, so I didn't see if you had questions. So tell me, I'm sorry if I missed an opportunity to answer a question as we go.
All right, anyone with any questions? Is that old? Oh, go.
Question, back on the chart that you had for the completed projects,
Mm-hmm.
if you can bring that up. Oh, okay.
This one here?
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, you're going to test my eyesight here.
Okay. The green area for Los Banos, I think the yellow line is 152, right below that purple U-shaped thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Could you, is that H Street? What, or is that Henry Miller?
That's Henry, the large green, that's Henry Miller.
Okay, so that's a county project.
That's a county project.
Okay.
I think it was a multiple phase rehabilitation project that the county secured West Side Regional funds for.
Okay. So the green dots that are close to 152, I'm assuming those are city projects. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think that was my question.
It kind of just turns into a green blob for me from here, but definitely Henry Miller. And if they are not, I'm familiar with the other projects being regional, so I'm going to look at Neuron and say, yes, if there are dots on there, they're going to be local. They're going to be local dollar projects. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, and since we're on a topic of MCAG, I was just wondering if you could give anybody who's watching, or just anybody here today, more information about YARTS. What an awesome program YARTS is.
Thank you. I would love to talk about YARTS. YARTS is a public transit system that we administer at MCAG, and it is essentially public transit to Yosemite National Park. So we operate from Merced to Yosemite Valley year-round off of Highway 140. These are big coach buses, so they have bathrooms. Right now I have to warn you, if you go to the park, be prepared to wait, depending on what day of the week, up to 2, 3, 4 hours at the highest at the gate. Very, very high traffic volume. But the good thing about being on the bus is you're not paying your gate fee, and you can walk around while you're sitting in that gate traffic, and you can also use the restroom, which you can't use when you're in your car. So YARTS has an extra plus. But we operate, as I mentioned, year-round on 140, but it's a separate joint powers authority that MCAG administers, and it's with the County of Merced, the County of Mariposa, the County of Madera, the County of Tuolumne, and the County of Mono. And each of those, we actually operate service in the summer on all of the state highways that go into Yosemite National Park. So we're waiting right now very impatiently to have the Tioga Pass open so that we can begin our service over to Mammoth Lakes. But it really is an awesome opportunity. As I mentioned, you buy your ticket. You can, if coming from here, if you wanted to take the LB route over to Merced, takes you to Transpo, you can get on a YARTS bus, take a nap, and wake up in the park. You don't pay your gate fee, and it's really a relaxing way to spend the day in the park. You can book a reservation, or you can do a walk-on. Generally, walk-ons in Merced are really easy, but once you get up the corridor a bit, it starts to get pretty busy in the summer. So just a really, it's a hidden gem that we do here in Merced County that's really popular over the hill in the mountain hiking communities, and it's a really exciting opportunity to get in and see the park. So if you haven't been and you're interested, give me a call. We'll get you connected and get you booked, and you can enjoy Yosemite.
All right, thank you for that. Save your gas money. Use YARTS. Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
For the bus, under Measure V, you have a little blurb here about veterans riding, and you spoke about senior citizens. And it indicates that veterans just show their ID and there's no worry for payment. So for senior citizens, do they just show California ID or something of that sort?
Yes.
Okay.
Those are both the easiest for, and I know you're not asking, but since we're talking about that program, the only one that has an extra layer of an extra step is ADA eligible. There's actually, we don't qualify you as an ADA eligible rider. There's a certification process that we can do. It's not difficult, but we have a third party that does that. And so that's a little extra layer complication, but otherwise it's ID.
Okay.
And I should say that we are going to be operating, in fact, now that I just said that, I don't have the dates. If it's not already now, you might have seen it if you saw it on my social media, that we're offering free service all summer on all of our services. So but we do encourage, if you are a Measure V rider, still show your ID so that we know how to track those riderships. And that's the same for students. But across the board, we are using other grant programs to supplement it so that all of our riders are going to be free for the summer.
And out of curiosity, if someone is riding from Merced, say maybe into Stanislaus County, is there any kind of reciprocity or agreement between the two counties that a veteran or a senior can ride their transit as well for free?
Well, there's a little bit of something there. So we do have a T route. We operate into Turlock. But in terms of, and I know this is where if Nav's watching, he's going to be yelling at his TV or his computer screen right now. There is some discussion with the Turlock Transit System about coordinating our free service times so that if we are riding free here, you can go on and ride free on their service. So the answer is yes, there is that coordination for our free program. When they are for everyone, but specifically for Measure V, we don't have that level of coordination to where it's all year round. But that's something I'm going to ask about because I do know that, Stanislaus also has a Measure program and it might be something they haven't considered. So that would be an interesting thing to be able to develop so that all veteran seniors and ADA eligible can go into Stanislaus County for free. So I'll look into that.
Thank you.
All right, Stacy, any final questions? No? All right, Stacy, thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will leave these extra copies with Lucy and she'll, okay, good. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to item 9, the public hearing. If you challenge a proposed action as described herein in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described herein or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to this public hearing. So we're going to go into item 9A, which is the public hearing to receive public comment and consideration of a categorical exemption from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and conditional use permit 2023-05 to allow the use of a type 21 alcohol license for the off-sale of general alcohol for the beverage house located within the professional office zoning district at 547 West I Street, more specifically identified as Assessor's Parcel 027-033-008. And for this, we'll go to Community and Economic Development Director Suze Helms.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. So just a little bit of background on this particular project. The Planning Commission did review this proposal back in May of this year and recommended approval of this conditional use permit to the City Council. This was a former location of a Circle K. It's right across the street from the hospital. And they currently operate with an existing type 20 alcohol license. That's for beer and wine only off sale. So the proposal before you tonight is a request for the use of a type 21 alcohol license. This is for the off sale of general alcohol, and which is regulated by ABC, the Alcohol Beverage Control Department of the State of California. The proposed hours of operation are 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to midnight. And I do want to note that Circle K historically operated 24/7. So this is an adjustment, and this is in order to be more neighborhood friendly. This is the site. It is located at 547 West I Street. As you can see, this is, so it's highlighted in yellow, and it's pointed with the arrow, but it is across the street from the hospital at 520 West I Street. It's bound by Idaho Avenue, and it is near Texas and Iowa Avenue. It is adjacent to multifamily. That's on the east side of the project, off of Idaho, and it is also adjacent to the Los Banos Acute Center. This is the convalescent hospital there, which almost wraps that parcel that 547 West I Street sits on. So according to CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, this project has been deemed categorically exempt per Article 19, Section 15301, in that it is an existing facility and the footprint is not proposed for expansion at this time. The use permit analysis, the Los Banos Municipal Code has certain criteria, certain findings for conditional use permits, which are general findings. And then for alcohol uses, it has also specific criteria, which this project does fall within, meets all of those findings. And again, ABC is the issuing authority and regulates any use of alcohol. The census tract, this project is located in census tract 22.01. There are currently 12 active off-sale licenses within that census tract. And the proposal before you tonight is just a intensification request. So an additional license will not be added to the census tract. It will just be intensified from a 20 to a 21. This is the floor plan proposed. The areas highlighted in red are where the alcohol will be, the proposed for the 21 will be located, which are those display areas. And behind the cash register is where the distilled spirits will be located. This is a future plan of the improvements that will be occurring here at the Beverage House Market. This will be a wonderful addition to see, as that old Circle K is worn and tired, and I think it's outlived its life as looking like the prototype Circle K. So we're excited to see this facelift occur here that the applicant is proposing. They're also proposing to revitalize and enhance the current landscaping. They'll be providing a trash enclosure, and it'll be a great addition to the neighborhood. So public hearing comment. Notices were published in the Merced Sun-Star on June 23rd, and as of today's date, no comments have been received. So with that, staff is recommending that the City Council would consider finding the proposed project to be categorically exempt and adopting resolution number 6663, approving conditional use permit number 202305, to allow the off-sale of general alcohol at 547 West I Street for the Beverage House Market. And that concludes my presentation. And Steve Rawlings is a representative of the applicant and is here as well.
All right, so let's start with the public hearing. So we'll open the public hearing. And I know you said there were no write-in comments. Okay, do we have anybody here in the public wishing to discuss this? No? Okay. All right, so this time I'll close the public hearing and turn it over to you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Steve Rawlings. I'm here on behalf of the owners of the Beverage House Market. Just for the record, we obviously concur with the staff and Planning Commission's recommendation, and we do agree to all of the conditions of approval as presented to you this evening. I did want to take a couple of minutes to thank Director Souza and Commander Reyna. I started with them when we first bought the property and explained to them what we wanted to do, and we worked through potential issues, and we presented an operational plan that I think everybody felt very comfortable comfortable with. As a little bit of background, the folks that did purchase this Circle K have purchased many former Circle Ks throughout the state of California. They're very excited to be here in the city of Los Banos. Right from the get-go, when they saw the location, they realized that it was very tired. It needed a dramatic facelift, which they did hire an architect, and this is what they are intending to do. They also are, having re-merchandised it a little bit. They are committed to carrying a lot of fresh foods and become more of a neighborhood market. The other thing that they did was they cut the hours back. They're very, very concerned about public safety of their employees, and they just don't have any desire to be a late night operation for a variety of reasons. They have been operating the store, I think, since January, February, and I believe, I'm very happy to report that I believe that the activity level there in terms of public nuisance and safety has diminished dramatically, and that I think we're demonstrating that we are very, very good operators and committed to being a really good business partner here in the city of Los Banos. So with that, I'm available for any questions that anybody may have.
All right, thank you. All right, so regarding 9A1, do I have a motion? Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve City Council Resolution Number 6663, and I just want to say the renderings look great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Begonia.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to second the motion.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, let's move on to item 10, State of the Streets and Pavement Condition Report. For this, we'll go to our Public Works Director, Nira.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, member of the public. Thank you for having me for this item tonight. I just want to apologize in advance. It is a bit technical, and I might start to go a little fast, just because, when you give a mic to a public work guy to talk about street, we tend to just, continue on and on. So I might digress a bit, but feel free to stop me at any time to ask questions, as this is a very excited topic for us, and a much anticipated report, just as we all heard from the public hearing, as much as everybody else when it comes to All Road. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. So tonight, we'll give a little background of our pavement management program. We'll talk about the result of the reports on the survey of our roads as a network-wide. We'll explain a little bit about what is our measurings, our matrix for the systems, that is PCI, as well as kind of the models and what we call a deterioration curve for All Road. And then, of course, that we'll get into the discussions of different treatment options, as well as budget scenarios, sample budget scenarios, as I may, about this project. You might remember back in December 7th, Council have approved a budget and also authorized a contract with one of our consultants to actually do a condition survey of our road. That is for the entire city. That contract was for them to use an equipment that's mounted on a trucks to go and survey and record all of our roads, do a crack mappings, and actually scientifically rate our roads based on the condition it's in through what we call a PCI, which is the matrix I'll go through in a little bit. From an inventory standpoint, we own and maintain approximately 134 center lane mile. Sometime you might hear the term center mile versus center lane mile. Center mile, if you can imagine, a 4-lane arterials. If you look at just a yellow line in the center, that's what we measure. The center lane mile, on the other hand, let's say if you have 1 mile of an arterial road and that arterial road have 2 lanes, right? So now that road, even though it's 1 mile long from the center, is actually 2 center lane mile. It's all depend on the lane. But in perspective, that gives us about 27 million square foot of paved area. So just to put that in perspective a little bit, that's about 468 football fields. That's how much paved surface the city of Los Banos has. It's quite a bit. Our overall network, which is our score, I'll go into more detail on that score. This is, again, is an average of the entire city is at 50. That is 50 out of 100. So to maintain our road, we actually use what we call a pavement management program. So the pavement management program, or PMP, is a systematic process that we use to oversee our road that is starting from the assessing of the pavement conditions, optimizing the treatment plans, implementing that treatment plan, and then measuring those progress. And it is on a cycle, as you see on the presentation here, to continually make sure that we are continue to improve our road conditions. Just to break down our result a little bit more, so there is the tables here. So our roads are divided into different category. That is based on the use and the functional classification of that road. The first one is arterials. So we have an arterials and a minor arterials that make up roughly about 13 centimile or so of our road. And combined, the arterials and minor arterials has a PCI rating of roughly about 44. The next step down is our collector. Our collector roads make up about 24 total centimile of road, and currently is at a PCI of 50. The biggest assets we have, or in terms of lengthwise, is our local road. That is our residential road, typically 25 miles an hour, 2 lane on each side. That's made up about 96 mile of road, and that is about at a PCI of 51. So overall, we're at a PCI of 50. So why is that important, and why do we use PCI? Because in order to scientifically rate our roads, we have to have some sort of matrix. PCI is a well-established standards that are being used throughout California as well as nationwide to measure our road. It is a numerical systems from a 0 to 100, 0 being very, very poor or failed condition road, and 100 being a brand new and excellent condition road. So I put some pictures out there from left to right, top to bottom. So the top left corner, that is in red, that is San Luis Road. We do get quite a bit of call on there. So that road is currently at a PCI of 5. So that just to give you a gauge of what PCI of 5 look like. And then to the right of that in orange, that is on a very poor condition road. That is Badger Flat from Michelati to Prairie Spring. That is a PCI of 31. And then below San Luis in yellow, that is PCI of 64, that is Gilbert Gonzalez. And typically at a PCI of 64, usually the road does not have any structural failures or load failures to that. It's usually been worn down through weather and time. And to the right of that, that's PCI of 82. That's what we consider a very good road. As you can see, it's still nice and black. It barely have any deterioration on it at all. There is no structural defect. That's just a little bit of crack sealing or weathering on that road. So that's just to give you a perspective of what a PCI of a 0 would look like up to the PCI of 100. This is a geographical map of all the road in the city with all the PCI conditions as it is today. This is a snapshot of where we are in 2023. Unfortunately, as you can see, at a PCIs of 50, we have quite a bit of roads in the red criteria and quite a bit of roads in the orange criteria. So if you add those total up, we're roughly about 47% of our roads in that conditions, and with the other half of our road is in a fair and a very good problem. And that's why when you look at an average, although it's kind of like it's pretty good, we're at 50, but you're really having a two systems now of half of our roads is really in a poor condition, and the other half is in an excellent or new condition. Looking at a PCI at a snapshot is important, but also another thing that is very critical for us to look at is our trend line. How are we doing? Are our road or our pavement management systems are actually help improving our road, or we're actually going the wrong directions? So what I have shared with you here is that back in 2018, we're actually partner with MCAG to do this once already. So 5 years ago in 2018, we have a company called Dynatest that MCAG paid for to do countywide survey. So back in 2018, we only had about 120 center lane miles, so we're about 11 lane mile less than where we are, and we were at PCI 59. Now, and fast forward to 2023, we have 11 more mile, new road that we accepted, and our PCI has dropped to 50. And it's really, if you're looking at the trend line here, the green is the percentage of good road or satisfactory, and then the yellow, the blue, and the red is essentially starting to deteriorate, right? So what we see is that as we continue to accept new road and we build or rehabilitate new road, is that you start seeing that good condition percentage goes up. In fact, from 2018 to 2023, we gone up from a 12.3% good roads to a 36%. So that's a really good job. But what's really concerning is that the road that is in the 70, PCI 70, in a fair condition, those road is starting to deteriorate. As you can see from the graph here, back in 2018, we have the satisfactory roads at about 23.6%. That has now decreased to about 8%. Road in the fair category was at 21.2%. That has decreased now to an 8.1. So where those road go? Well, they become poor. As you can see on the blue graph there, we went from an 18.6% of poor roads to now over 28.3. The red helps a little bit because we've been focusing a lot of our efforts on the really, really bad roads. That's why you see some of those getting improved. But unfortunately, as we spend our dollars on bad road, those are the most expensive road to fix, unfortunately. So our dollar does not go as far as we want them to be. Okay. So this is just a side-by-side snapshot of what we see in 2018 geographically versus where we are now in 2023. So this map is a little more in detail on your report and will be made available publicly also. Okay. So where are we at comparing to all our local jurisdictions? So I want to put a little disclaimers out there a little bit. The data that we have currently for all those other cities in Merced County was based on 2018 data. Unfortunately, I was not able to find any other city that actually do a survey like we do for 2023. So a lot of those was not available. So I put in our 2023 data in comparison with the 2018 data from other cities. If they were to follow the same trends as we do, those city or those PCI level from those other city would have dropped 10 points. So for example, say Dos Palos, our neighbor, if they were to follow the same trends we do, actually in 2023, that number would have been 29 instead of 39. They would have dropped 10 points. But unfortunately, that is not available to us, so I use it to compare with the 2018. But overall, we are kind of in the middle of the pack in respect to Merced County. Typically, where we want to be, or what the payment experts would like for us to be, is somewhere in the 70. That's what we consider a fair or optimized condition for road. Okay, so now that we understand a little bit about the PCIs is a snapshot, but it also helps us predict where we're going to be and what should we do to improve those PCI. And we do that based on something called a models or payment deterioration curve. This is an empirical data that's been researched decades with multiple different universities, as well as multiple universities looking at all the different structural sections of pavement, that is asphalt, concrete, base rocks, and things like that, and how those road deteriorates over time based on different loading criteria. So they came up with this really awesome models that is mathematically driven based on the condition and environment that was road in. So what did you see is it's that pavement deteriorates not in a linear fashion. They have a concave down as a start, and then it's concave up. So one thing I want to note is that in the first 75% of a pavement life. So typically when we design road are designed for a 20-year life cycle. So that means you start out at PCI 100, and typically at 20 years, if you do nothing to that road and you put it to a bunch of structural loads and distress and things like that, that road will then deteriorate to probably a PCI of 10 or 0. Right? That's kind of how these things are designed. But unfortunately, what we need to look at is that pavement deteriorates the fastest in the middle section. So when it start out in 100, from 100 to a PCI at about 60 or 65 or so, it takes about 12 or 13 years for that road to deteriorate to that level. The next section of it, that is the next 75% of its life, is actually dropped drastically, and that's what we call the inflection point. This 40% drop in quality is really only within a couple years. So what we want to do from a payment strategy is a lot of time is keep our road in the 65 PCI in a fair condition, and as it get to that level, you put in some sort of treatment so that you bring that road back up to good condition. And that's why sometimes it can be a little bit counterintuitive for our residents, like, why are you paving my neighbor road when it looks like it's still in pretty good shape? It's because our dollar go a lot further, and you keep the pavement in good condition and not spending too much effort. And I'll go to that in a little bit through life cycle cost analysis here. Okay. So when we look at payment and comparing costs and different treatments, what we use is what's called a life cycle cost analysis. So we look at payment for the entire lifespan, so typically from 20 to 30 years. We then put the same kind of payment to looking at different model of, hey, what if we do conventional treatment? That is, we wait until the pavement get to a really bad condition, we go grind it out and we pave it, right? We do that every 10 years or every 15 years. Or we do it with the new strategy, which is as the pavement get to about 70, let's crack seal it and slurry it and bring it back up. 7 years from then, we do it again. So in a 30-year lifespan, you might treat that road 3 or 4 times, but in overall cost, what we find out from a lot of different research is that you are actually doing the preventive method will save you at least 30% in cost over that same 30-year period of time. And that's why over a 30 period, we always recommend a preventive method over a rehabilitations method. when it comes to treatment options, we typically divide it into 3 different categories. And each category corresponds to the different type of PCI or a different level of that road. The first one that we always recommend is preventive maintenance. That's typically at a PCI of 65 and above. And the cost for preventive maintenance are typically about $5 to $9 per square yard. That is something that the preventive method is essentially to keep the road in good conditions, to prolong its life using the cheapest method. That is crack sealing, slurry, microsurfacings, and a very, very thin 1 or 1.5 inch overlay. The next one, so if the roads then fail below 65, it gets to the 50 and the 40, and then you start doing what we call the rehabilitations. So now that road has a lot of different crack, have distresses, what you've seen in the road sometime, like alligator cracks on the wheel path and things like that. Those are the roads that need to have rehabilitation. Those rehabilitations are like major chip seal, cape seal program, asphalt removal, or what we call a dig out to grind and replace that whole sections and then put it back. That ranges around $10 to $20 per square yard. The last one is when the roads get to about 20, PCI 30 down below. That's what we call reconstruction. That road has so much of the distresses of the structural failures that it can no longer be rehabilitated. It needs to be completely removed and rebuilt. There is new technology now that allows us to save on cost. However, we still see costs upward of $20 to $80 per square yard. I think it's really getting closer to more $80 per square yard than it is to 20 now with the prices of everything. This is kind of like, I pulled this off of what we call the website called roadresource.org. It is a very, very neat software that I will make available and recommend to our residents or anyone who want to check out. It highlights all the different treatment as you see on the left, when that treatment are recommended, how much it typically costs, what's the best practices for it, and when is it applicable. So as you can see on that block of road there, at the top really dark black section, that's your asphalt. Underneath the asphalt is your base rock. And in some cases, depending on the soil, we might have sub-base or we might have native. But in a lot of time, what we want to do is take care of the pavement within the A, B, or C section before it get to those D and F, right? So this website allow you to kind of take a look at all the different treatment that we are incorporating and will be incorporating in the future as preventive, and to kind of give a snapshot to anybody who want to, find out more about pavement. You can always call me, but this is also available. So with all that information, what we do is we run 5 sample analysis. The first one, and again, this is where we call a sample analysis because they are not optimized quite yet for our city because our city is unique. We have different usage, we have different traffic patterns and things like that that can be optimized. These are just standard reports and scenarios that build in to show you what different dollar amount and what PCI a goal would impact our budget. The first one, scenario 1, is what our current budget is. So our current budget, as you see earlier, we have about $1.4 million from Measure V. Those are local funding. That is currently 100% going to our pavement repair. We also has SB1 funding that is coming to us, usually about $1 million or so. So conservatively, we put in about $2.5 million of Measure V and SB1 as our base funding because those are local and formula, and we know that we're going to be getting those on an annual basis to see what that will do. Scenario 2 is said, well, you know what, we're at PCI 50. What would it take to keep us on that trend line so that way we'll not continue to decrease our PCI? Scenario 3 is said, well, you know what, we want to reverse that. We actually want our road to look better. So if we want to improve our PCI by 5 PCI point to go from 50 to 55, what would it take, right? And then that goes on. And then number 4 is an average need. This is what we kind of call an optimized plans, like in a 5-year to the best of our ability, or to, if we were to have unlimited funding, right? What would that look like? That's scenario number 4. And then, of course, scenario number 5, what if we were to do nothing? What if we don't pave our road at all? We don't use any of those funding. What would that look like? So in general, with the funding that we have at about $2.5 million, we can stay constant at our PCI. So won't be dropping anymore for the next 5 years. However, if we want to improve our road conditions, we need to start investing and increasing in that funding. So at about $4.5 million annually, we can look at potentially increasing our PCI, overall PCI by 5 points. And then if we were to have unlimited funding, at about $18 million or $100 million over 5 years, we can improve our PCI to 66. There's a lot of factors that go into this, and that's why I call it as a sample budget scenario, because not just the funding, but we also have to look at operational capacity, because, it is important for us to make sure that we're not going to pave every single road all at once to where, I can't go to Walmart anymore or Target anymore, and we shut down the city for the entire summer, right? And also the available resources, as you can imagine with SB1, ARPA funding and everything, there is a lot of strain on the contractor side that's on a typical basis. What we've usually seen is that each contractors usually deliver a contract somewhere between $3 to $4 million. That's kind of their sweet spot to be able to bid on this job. So if you were to put in an $18 million project, you might not get those best bang for the buck for the economy of scale, just because they are not set up to do that much all at once. Okay. To touch on our current fundings, again, we received quite a bit of funding. We have quite a few fundings, revenue sources, I should say. One of them is SB1 Measure V, but we also have the RSTP, we have gas tax, and we have the LTF fund. So there is quite a bit of funds that come into our account. So that estimated to about $4.1 million right now as revenue specifically for transportations. Out of those $4.1 million, we do have to maintain active transportation, such as our bike routes, our trails, as well as our traffic signals, street signage, and stuff that is not pavement related, right? So conservatively estimating what could go right now into our paving, we're looking at more closer to $3.1 million for actual paving on an annual basis. So again, the purpose of this report is really to provide you a snapshot of where we are, looking at different funding scenario and what that will do to our city. So really what we are asking tonight is for City Council to receive the report and direct staff to further evaluate our sustainable funding scenarios that would yield the best PCI result to our network. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Councilmember Lambert?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of comments, Mr. John. So basically what you're saying is, in the past, we have not had a management system to oversee our roads.
We do have a payment management program. However, the strategy for the payment maintenance has been a little bit different because we have been focusing a lot on failed streets. So as you can imagine, we did part of San Luis before. We just did Snow Goose.
Well, I mean, in the past, before you had came,
yeah.
Was there a system in place that we should have been following?
It was a system in place, but it was to fix fail road first.
Just
versus,
fail road.
Yeah, versus keeping our good road in good condition.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. And then for what we passed on our budget this last year, or this last meeting, is just a small part of what it's going to take to get our roads back up into condition.
That's correct.
So our tax dollars and everything is going to a good cause. And just to be straight up with you, everybody I've spoke to in the last week that's talked to me about this, their first priority was roads. So, yeah. And then I guess we'll get talking about what scenarios here in this. That I just wanted to make.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Neron? Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you. So you've indicated that roughly our annual budget is 4.1 million. And conservatively, we can spend 3.1, which means it leaves $1 million for all the other projects that you can do. So the scenario, well, you haven't gotten to the parts for the conclusions for the different options, but the options are different from the scenarios. And when I looked at scenario 1 and scenario 2, scenario 1, I think, which is kind of what we're doing now, is like $2.5 million annually. And scenario 2 is 4.4. Scenario 3 is 4.6. So there's a slight difference between scenario 2 and 3 in dollar amounts, but there's a big jump in difference and a gap of money between 1 and 2. So was there any thought about maybe shortening that gap between scenario 1 and 2 as far as funding is concerned?
I think scenario 1 is about 2.5, scenario 2 is 2.4, and I think what I was trying to show, and I apologize for this confusion too, is that scenario 1 is a non-optimized conditions. So that's say if we would have put $2.5 million, we just straight out fictitiously put 50% of that toward preventive maintenance, 50% of that toward repairing really, really bad roads. That is just a fictitious number. This is what you would get. Versus scenario number 2 is actually an optimized system to put it into like, we're not coming up with a 50% breakpoint here, but it said if that road need to be preventive, that year we are spending money on preventive. And then if next year or following year, that road need to be rehabilitate, we do that.
Okay, so I guess maybe I'm looking at this wrong, or maybe it's a typo, but under the conclusion of the report, in the back on page 38, for the different options, option 3, as I was able to figure it out, was scenario 2, and it says an annual budget of $4.4 million.
Yeah, that might be a typo, council member, because over here, scenario 3 is a $4.6 million, and that's actually, you're right, does have a huge jump. It's actually going to be bumping our PCI from 50 to 55 in 5 years at 4.6 million.
Okay, because the conclusion is what we have to choose from, so that's why I brought that up.
Okay, thank you.
The other question I have is, no matter what scenario we choose, it looks like the very poor road conditions are basically the same. They don't change. So, what's the plan to deal with those very poor condition roads? I guess that would be under the, well, it's the lowest percentage road. It's like, as I go along the bottom of that, it stays around 34, 33. Scenario 4 is 23, and no funding at all is 34. So it doesn't look like, no matter which scenario the council chooses, those roads aren't going to get much attention.
Yeah. So when we look at an overall networks, kind of an overall average PCI, the system will automatically choose the least expensive and that give us the most bang in terms of the PCI yield out of the entire system. So that's why you see that on a very poor roads, it stays fairly consistent. That because those really, really poor road is a result of what we call a deferred maintenance, right? So as we built up over decades of road that we haven't maintained, we now have a deferred maintenance of close to 55 million. So in order for us to catch up, we need to first exceed what our maintenance program is, which is typically in the $2 to $3 million range. And then all those excess funds will then be transferred to then catch up with the deferred maintenance. Now, unfortunately, as we are doing that, our road every year and every day that we're talking about this, our road continue to age. So even though we are, let's say we put in $6 million, right? $3 million of that goes to preventive maintenance to keep us in good condition. And then the other $3 million go toward really, really poor road, right? There's a bunch of other roads that now transitions from the very poor to the fail. So we are continually playing this catch up. So really, the huge difference that you would see is what you would see from the orange and the yellow category. And that's what the systems are typically proposed. However, this is, again, this report is just a sample. What we could do too is looking at a hybrid options to where we start addressing those very bad roads. So that way we address all the safety concern that we have. And in fact, that's what we're doing this year with San Luis and Overlands and things like that.
Yeah, so the deferred maintenance side of things is going to have to take some upfront financing. So we're going to continue with the scenario of maintenance through SB1, gas tax, and Measure B. The others are going to probably take, as Neron said, a hybrid solution where we're going to have to seek a one-time chunk of money that will apply to deferred maintenance so that we can keep the deterioration at bay, as well as bump up the PCI for those roads that need full rehabilitation. So, and I believe you're going to be dealing with two separate types of contractors. One that's coming specifically in, as he showed, the makeup of the road needing to do all that, and then others that are just doing crack seal and slurry.
So when you say upfront financing, what does that mean, and what does that
entail? It could
entail?
be in the form of a bond issue, or it could be in the form of a grant that comes down the road within the next 5 years. So we're constantly seeking out, like SB1, for instance, is an annual state allocation of $58 billion roughly to everybody within the state. So that's what he was talking about, worrying about contractors and the availability of all of that. If we start looking at rehabilitating, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, these roads, we can't really piecemeal it. We kind of have to go and attack the deferred maintenance in order to bump up any type of sizable amount to the PCI. Otherwise, even a 5-point increase of that is a considerable amount. As you can see with just the 18, if you're doing it 18 a year over a 5-year period, you're still going to have deferred maintenance of a pretty considerable amount, probably about the same what we're currently seeing. So it's a difficult situation that we have to take kind of a twofold approach to on the financing side of it. So we're constantly looking at the release of funds for infrastructure, which will happen because our infrastructure statewide is not good. So there'll be other structural budget things coming out of the state that will give us more funding. So, and then with Measure V, there's some of our regional arterials are going to be taken, that funding's kind of going to be taken out of that. So right now, this scenario, Miron's just trying to show you, and he can speak for himself, is that we know that we could do a scenario 3, but scenario 3 would probably pull from some of the other requirements within the gas tax, because gas tax is the one that he's talking about where a certain percentage of that goes to roads, certain percentage that goes to bike paths and, repaving, like the rail trail and those types of things. So it can't just go directly to the rehabilitation of streets. So
wouldn't scenario 3 take us out of our budget
about 4.6 million
annually?
Yes.
So that means that money has to be made up somewhere else.
Well, what we have about 4.5 million just in overall street funding currently, but that can change based upon what MCAG just presented to you in terms of unprogrammed funds and other things like that. But gas tax is a fund structure that we use for other street-related things, not just rehabilitation and maintenance of streets. So there would be some give and take in terms of what we do from a year-to-year standpoint on that. So yes, it would max out the street-related stuff, but I mean, there's other forms of financing within the city in terms of discretionary funds, that could be $1 million a year, depending on council's discretion. That's why it's called discretionary spending. But at this point, we're just presenting what would happen under these scenarios.
So are you making reference to the buildup of funds that the council said that we have to have X amount of dollars in reserve? Are you talking about?
No. What I'm saying is that, let's say the general fund has a surplus for a year or something as we're going through the next budget cycle or even mid-year, and we see, hey, revenues are exceeding expenditures in this regard. Maybe this is a time to apply that to roads versus other things. Again, it's a give and take in terms of your discretion on that. The road funds themselves are restricted for certain purposes. They have been presented to, especially Measure V, there's a spending plan. Gas tax gives a lot of leeway in terms of that, but all of those funds are restricted for street purposes. In terms of that give and take on the street side, if you wanted to do like bike paths, for instance, or sidewalks or something, you would have to then pull that from gas tax and not be able to put it into street rehab. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Jones.
So what I hear and how I'm interpreting this is that if we don't front load years 1 and 2 with a heavy impact to be able to get our roads up to par, it may drag out way past our 5-year goal and go to year 10 with the same outcome just because of the lack of contractors that may be available because of all the other cities taking advantage of SB1 financing?
Yes, and also front-loading some of this increases the PCI. It kind of spikes it, right? But I mean, because you're fighting against the deterioration, of the roads. And again, weather conditions being what they may be in the next 2 to 3 years, it could be everybody's really fighting to get their
So
stuff
it
done.
helps us get over the curve.
Yes. Right.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Neron? Any other questions for Neron?
Yes.
It is. All right. Yeah, I mean, and again, I can only worry about things I can handle, and I can't go back in time to 2018 when we had another survey done. It would have been nice if somebody in 2018 would have seen the kind of the state of things and made some corrections then, but it is what it is. So, as far as I definitely agree with you as far as the rehabilitation side. I mean, a 50's an F in any grade that you rate anything, right? And so getting into the 70s and how we can do that to sustain that. So I'm all in favor for it. And yes, you had me Googling things, by the way, when I was looking at surfaces and paving. So thank you, Neron, for that. So receive staff report and provide direction as to which scenarios and funding requests to further evaluate. So just my question is to both of you is what is your recommendation based on both the funding side and the actual street side?
Mayor, so I have amended that statement a little bit. So really, there is a lot of different specific and unique funding scenarios that we have to look at. So really what we are asking from you tonight is to receive the report and go ahead and direct staff to further look into a more sustainable funding that would maximize our PCI yield. And then we can come back in the next future council meeting to provide you with different scenarios as well as what the 5-year plan would look like under those different funding scenarios.
Okay, yes, and thank you for clarifying that. All right. Absolutely.
All right. Let's see. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for staff to research and prepare what is both financially and operationally feasible for the city to invest in our streets, if that works.
Do we have a second? Councilmember Lambert.
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor? And yes, question.
Okay. So in the conclusion of this report, there were the 5 options given to us based on the scenario. Was the request of staff tonight for council to choose one of the options?
No, council member, because those 5 scenarios are sample scenarios to see
Okay.
what the different budget would look like for those.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. So we had a second by Lambert. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Let's move into item 11, consideration of approval of City Council Resolution number 6664, approving memorandum of understanding MOU between the City of Los Banos and the Grasslands Water District regarding the recharge basin and stormwater capture project Phase 1. And for this, we'll go back to Neron.
Yep. We managed to do 2 of my favorite subjects tonight. So we went from streets to now water. So that's amazing. I really do like both of those. So this is tonight, mayors and the city council. We want to propose to you an MOU, a memorandum of understandings, as a partnership with Grassland Water District to look at a very, very exciting projects for us that is going to be potentially funded through a grant to help us with stormwater as well as our groundwater quality problems that we may face in the future. So as a little bit of recap, back in July 6th of 2022, City Council adopt a groundwater sustainability plan, or GSP, for Delta Mendota. That is a plan that is required under the SGMA law, that is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, for us to sustainably utilize our groundwater for drinking. And then also for talking about groundwater, it is correlated with stormwaters. As you can imagine, as we get rain events and things like that, those rain events, majority of it percolate. Some of it do flow into the canals and get conveyed outside of the city. But for the most part, groundwaters, drinking waters, and the stormwaters are commingled in a very big way. So right now, when it comes to stormwater purposes, we rely very heavily on our partner, CCID and Grassland, to convey a lot of our stormwaters. That's why you see all these 13, 14 pump stations all around cities to help us convey stormwater in an event that our percolations and our landscaping are unable to keep up with major rain events. Now, for the 2022-2023 rain event, just want to give you a little bit of a background here, is that we received over 16 inches of rain. That is from October to May of this year. That is an extraordinary amount of rain. On an average, city of Los Banos in the last decade, we received about 7 to 8 inches of rain. This last year alone, we received over 16 inches. That provides some hardships when it comes to dealing with stormwater. As you can imagine, many city and even the governor himself is proposing different projects or so to capture rainwater and see how we can utilize that to recharge our groundwater basin. As the city rely 100% right now, our drinking water is on groundwater. So in response to, the Sigma compliant as well as the major storm event that we just received, staff has been kind of working very actively in pursuing way to capture some of those rainwater as well as how to deal with the stormwater quality. As you can imagine, some of the issues that are going to be coming forefront here in the future, like chromium-6 and such. So in late 2022, City Council did an actions to adopt a low impact development standard. That is the first standards to bring in to establish groundwater quality, to provide implementation mitigation programs to treat stormwater. So that is a treatment that is on the surface before the stormwater get percolated into the ground. So now, with that in place, we need to start going beyond just the treatment. We need to look at storing as well as recharging. In the past, we have built many retention basins. Those retention basins has been really the purpose of them is to capture and prevent flood water. So in an event that we have, for example, 100-year flood or so, and our conveyance system, our pipes and our pumps cannot handle those water get then diverted into those basins. They were really never thought of as a recharge basin, but with a lot of new funding and stuff, with the available rain, and plus with the available rain that we got in this year, we have piloted a recharge program. So as you can see on the pictures up top there, that is Meadowland Basin. So we have shut off the pump back in January and have that turns off all the way until May, and we were able to capture quite a lot of rain and established quite a few waterfront property within the city. So it's actually looked quite nice. And for some of you that went to the Arbor Day, you see Lake Verona that was there. So that was a result of that pilot program. Okay. As we were working on way to capture stormwaters and looking at how to convey and do flood management, we have partners with CCID and Grassland, and they look into their own programs and looking at how they can best assist and work together with us because we are in the same sub-basins. Is that Grassland actually just received a Prop 68 grant for about $1 million, and the intent of the grant was to improve and enhance water conveyance and water control structures to efficiently captures and temporarily store water so that they can convey them to the animal refuge and for all those habitat. And the nice thing with us is that we are geographically located between two of their main canals, the San Luis and the Santa Fe Canal. And between those two canals, right before they cross, we actually own about 160 acres of that property that was originally planned for a wastewater discharge, but that's no longer applicable because of the various state law. So they approached us and said, hey, cities, you own this property. It's not meant for developments, and it's kind of meant for, future bypass and things like that. In the meantime, would you be susceptible to looking at a study to then reuse that property for stormwater recharge as well as flood management projects? We start looking at it further, and then in fact, we do have fundings in our budget to look at groundwater restorations and groundwater recharge projects. We solicited an assistant with our on-call engineer, Provost and Pritchards, and put together a proposals and contracts for us to explore this. So in partnership with Grassland, now that they got that $1 million, we really want to get your blessing tonight to explore this because it has potential, a lot of benefits for our city. One is that it increased our stormwater capture capacity. over that 160 acre. Second, it increased our resiliency in dealing with flood. As you can imagine, with all these 100-year rain events that continually happening, we are continually relying more and more on the Santa Fe Canal and the San Luis Canal to convey those water. Second is to create a recharge capacity. As you know, we have piloted this year, but relying solely on our basins is not sufficient. You know, we have a very large demands on groundwater, so to have something like this right within our GSA boundary would significantly helps our groundwater capture capacity. Second is that it helps groundwater quality. As you can imagine, this property is actually located between our wastewater treatment plants on a residential home. Having the ability to recharge within this facility create barriers between the groundwater penetrations and quality from the wastewater treatment plant, as well as the salt slough on that east side of town from having it coming into our drinking water system. And of course, last but not least, it also helps with the wildlife refuge because a lot of these water would be provided by grassland stored within that region. And eventually during the summer months and a dry month like this can be slowly released to continually sustain those wildlife refuge. So with that, really staff have seen this as a very beneficial project mutually between the city and Grassland, and we want to ask City Council to consider adopting the resolutions to allow the city manager to execute an MOU with Grassland Water District regarding this recharge basin. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Questions from your on? No questions. I'm just going to say that, I met with Rick Ortega from Grasslands and Chris White, who I call the czar of water, but, I was very happy to hear this project being proposed because it really does. It shows collaboration with other organizations in the city to everybody's benefit. And so thank you for taking charge and running with the water, so to speak. So do I have a motion? Councilmember Jones.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a city council resolution number, or make a motion to approve city council resolution number 6664 as submitted.
Thank you. And do I have a second? Councilmember Lambert.
I'll go ahead second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to item 12, cancellation of the regular city council meeting scheduled for Wednesday, August 16th, 2023 due to summer break. And do I have a motion for that? Councilmember Jones.
Yes, Mayor, I'll make a motion to cancel the August 16th, 2023 meeting.
All right, thank you. And do I have a second? Councilmember Begonia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. That motion passes. Okay, and then moving on to item 13, public notices. Understand we have none. All right, moving on to item 14, city manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I just want to say great job to the Downtown Association for them putting on the 4th of July event out there. It was a really nice event. The weather was a bit toasty for a while, 107 plus degrees, but once it cooled down, it was nice. So I was really happy and proud of all the work that they had there. The band was great. The vendors are great. So thank you for all the vendors for showing up and being part of that. Really appreciate that. Also, just big thank you to the veterans for all the work you folks do. I really appreciate it. It's always very inspiring when I go to your folks' hall, and it was quite an honor and a privilege for me to be there and swear in the officers. I just want to say thank you for that. I appreciate it. And it's always very nice during 4th of July and the holidays that you folks put out the American flags all throughout your town and in front of your home. So if you don't have a flag, feel free to reach out to those folks, get signed up to have a flag in front of your home or your business. It's really nice. I don't know what your capacity is, so I'm definitely making an announcement to have more people to go get your flags, but I really look forward to them every single year, and it was really nice to be able to see the Elks Lodge and veterans. They had a nice little viewing area to watch the fireworks, so I got a nice little front row seat, so it was really nice. And a big thank you to the fire department, public works department, police department, and the rest of the teams that assisted in that event. I know it was a long day for you folks and making sure that everybody kept themselves healthy and hydrated. So thank you folks for everything.
All right, thank you for that. Let's move on to item 15, report update, Merced County Association of Governments, Peninsula Clean Energy Measure V Committee, San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, and Los Banos Downtown Property and Business Improvement. And so we'll start with Councilmember Lewis for San Joaquin Valley.
No report? All right. Councilmember Jones, have anything on? All right. All right. And Stacy was just here, so she gave us our MCAG report. The only other thing with MCAG is as of July 1st, because of the rotational basis, I was elected as vice chair, and so I'll be sitting as vice chair for this year for MCAG. And then we'll go on a city council members report, starting with Councilmember Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a whole spiel I wanted to talk about, but not really gonna, because we got some answers answered, our questions answered. But I'd like to say for the roads, we passed that budget last meeting, and I have spoke to several people, and their biggest concerns were the roads. And I'm finally glad that we're kind of focusing, some most right, and then with our upgrade of our employees to handle this. I think the city will, or the citizens, not only our citizens of the city, but our fire department is going to probably be happy for the roads. Our police department is going to be happy for the roads. Getting something up there, they don't have to worry about dodging ruts or holes. But I look forward to the different scenarios once you guys get those together at our next, or whenever it comes to the next meeting. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Begonia?
No report.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Jones?
No report, Mayor.
Councilmember Lewis? No report. All right, and I'll go last. First, I want to thank the veterans for the flags. I absolutely love opening my front door 4th of July morning and seeing a beautiful American flag, so thank you for that. And I love driving around the city and seeing that. We recently held a barbecue, and I want to thank our city manager, Panero. We held a barbecue for the Public Works and Parks and Recs divisions of the city, and hopefully that was well received. We didn't have any leftovers, so I guess that's a good sign. Also, I want to thank Commander Reyna and the police department. And again, just because it's out of sight doesn't mean it's not out of mind. The multiple arrests that you guys made at the rail trail. I know recently there was a vehicle pursuit and there were felony arrests made at the rail trail behind McDonald's. So thank you for making that a priority. And then, of course, with the fireworks last night, I believe there were 30 plus citations issued for illegal fireworks at $1,250 a piece. So thank you for that as well. And then lastly, again, just the roads. Again, I'm not going to throw salt or blame whoever sat in whatever chair beforehand, because that's not going to get us anywhere. But thank you for having forward thinking, because yeah, we definitely need to take priority on that. So thank you for doing that with the roads. And that's all I have. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Councilmember Jones?
So moved.
Councilmember Lambert?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Meeting adjourned at 7:51.